Well, welcome. A topic that's coming up at many dinner tables and anywhere where people are discussing finances is the new Milford High School. We thought the best thing to do is to have a series of updates so that people would know where we are and what we're doing. So why don't we start with introductions?
Hi there, I'm James Reefstall. I am the Owner's Project Manager from Next Level OPM.
And I'm Stephanie McNeil. I'm one of the architects with HMFH Architects.
Great. And I'm Bobby Williams. I'm a principal at HMFH, and I'll be the principal in charge of this project.
People can understand what an architect is supposed to do. Probably not to the degree, is it just design it and keep it under budget. But what does an owner's project manager do?
It's a great question, and even to this day, it's hard to define. It's almost like the MSBA. It's right. We define by saying what we don't do. We don't design and we don't build, but no, we are tasked with monitoring the project and the process. And all to the owner's satisfaction and their requirements. So we're making sure that the designer's doing their job and that they're properly incorporating, the owner's requirements and their scope needs into the project. We're monitoring that it's being done in a expeditious manner, and which is not something we need to worry about with HMFH. But and the same thing, once it goes out to bid, we're monitoring the construction now and the construction process as well. Any issues come up, we're the grease in the process, basically is what you want to think of it. If anything comes up, we're trying to smooth out the road, just to make sure things keep clicking along and going as intended.
Well, you sort of overlooked a little step, which the school building committee counts on you to interface with the school building administration of the state.
Yes.
I mean, there are one or two rules that have to be followed.
Absolutely. That's a great segue into, how are we building this school and how is it getting funded? Is this just Milford going out on its own and we want a new school and we're going to pay for it? And no.
My heart just stopped.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, how did we get to this point? And, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, what we call an MSBA from now on, so that's a mouthful, they are the authority in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that it's largely a reimbursement program, but it also has rules on a reimbursement program on schools, on school building. So every district, they have a process. Every district can apply via a statement of interest and say we have a need. Our high school here is it's in need of repair. It's not meeting X, Y, and Z conditions, educationally or physically, and we would like to be part of this reimbursement program. And Milford applied, and for the high school, I think some towns they can apply 8-10 years in a row. It's a yearly annual thing. I think Superintendent McIntyre at the time he got it in 2 years or 3 years, something like that. So it's almost like a feather in your cap if you can.
Wow.
You wrote it well enough to get yourself to the to showcase your need so that the MSBA understood it.
Well, a town like Milford, we have 5 schools, 5 major schools.
Yes.
Average life of a school, 40, 50 years?
Yep. We
That's what we
designed
aim
for
for.
about 40 to 50, correct.
So every 8 years to 10 years, we're doing a major renovation project.
Yeah,
what
it's
it
a good way
seems
to
like.
look at it.
Because, you start thinking about it. We did Brookside 8 years later. We did Woodland.
Yep.
Woodland's 10 years old.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
I know. I went back to it the other day. I was like, wow. it's
But
time
this
warp,
one
yeah.
is, of the fleet we have, this is the aircraft carrier.
Correct.
That's right.
This is the biggest one that'll have the largest financial impact.
That's right. For the audience who don't know, it's just, coincidentally, we are all, I as the OPM am procured via what's called the qualifications-based process that Milford ran, and they went out. And the same thing for the designer. Who has the best qualifications for the town of Milford to be hired as their OPM and designer. And we were selected for Milford High School. It just turns out that I was an OPM from a different company 10 years ago on Woodland. And HMFH was the architect for
Correct.
Woodland Elementary School. And we think and we're finding there's a lot of benefit because we know each other. And we know how each other work, and that relationship is, besides the HMFH's qualifications and my qualifications of building other high schools, but having that personal knowledge of Milford and how they operate and is very helpful on this project.
Absolutely.
Well, let's face it, we had 2 or 3 bids that were all good bids, good companies.
Yeah.
But I don't want to seem trite on this, but go with the horse you know.
Right.
You know, we had Woodland. Woodland came in on time, under budget.
Yeah.
And there's always some little minor glitches, but we didn't have any
Correct.
catastrophes.
Mhm.
Was
And you
it-
sit there and say, okay, who am I going to bet on to design this new school
Yeah.
that's bigger than the school we just designed? You know, what horse am I going to ride in the race? The one I know?
And it was a bit of a perfect storm too, because after I had finished Woodland, I had went on and I continued, but I just coincidentally worked on like 3+ high schools. And HMFH after Woodland, they had not only high schools they were working on, they're working
Career
on middle
tech.
high schools, but vocational technology schools. And so now they had that background to come to Milford with, fresh off. You're still
Absolutely.
working on, Bristol Plymouth, for example.
Yeah.
So it really was a well-timed, just happened to be well-timed event, that we could get them all together with
Well,
the
you
right
brought up-
knowledge.
Milford is just saying, let's do a high school. Why are we building a new high school?
For many reasons, really. For one, physically, the building's 1973, and now that is 50+ years old. And while it may exterior look good and things like that, as we all know, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the infrastructure is starting to go. And then not even mentioning technology. You know how technology has just changed so much that the building wasn't what we anticipated 50 years ago for technology.
Yeah.
There was just we might as well just be the Jetsons,
Don't say it that way. I was in the first class that graduated in '74.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no,
So don't mention the
it's-
Jetsons.
It's done its job, and the district has done its job using what it has to educate its students. But now we have it. So, and there's a second component. That I was just talking about the physical. Second component where educational requirements and even building human-centric. I mean, what I'm getting at is like ADA. ADA wasn't around until 1980. I think when it was actually passed, and so we take it for granted nowadays. But 1973, the building wasn't what we call ADA accessible. Sorry. And then, from an educational standpoint, our awareness of special education has grown, and the students that what they had for a special education program in 1973 is different from what we have today, and so to try to ask that 1973 building to be able to respond to today's requirements, demands, to fulfill today's modern educational requirements, it's asking a lot.
And I think
Well-
a screaming example for me in
Yeah.
the building right now is if you look at where they're teaching their science spaces out of, when the building opened, they had enough room to have a fantastic science suite with a central prep room that all the teachers were able to utilize, along with an office and a lecture hall. But now that space has been chopped up and they have 0 prep spaces because they had to turn that into classroom spaces. You have biology classes that are being taught. That the teachers are being very creative to come up with a way to teach biology with not actually being able to do any labs because they're not in a space that can support that. So, we want to help those educational components get back to having the space they need to teach their
Well,
programs.
it's funny because a few years ago, we put in $500,000 upgrade to the C wing, the science wing.
Mhm.
And that started one night when we walked in for a seminar. And I looked at the C wing and I said, wow, this looks just like it did when I was
Yeah.
here.
Yes,
You hear that a lot. You hear that a
You
lot.
know, the equipment looks just like it.
those fume hoods from the
Yeah.
70s are still there.
So I want to touch on a few things now that James has said. One, just quickly going back to the MSBA process and what the MSBA does. 1 penny of every sales tax goes into a fund that the MSBA manages. So that's where they get a budget every year, and that's how they spread the money out across all the, to all the schools. This is why it's a very competitive program, because there's always money that the MSBA has every year, and they're planning to give it out to as many.
But when I sat in on that presentation to the SBA, I was stunned because we were going up against towns or cities, and they were trying to get money for a school that was 70, 75 years old. It made me feel kind of
Yeah.
funny that ours was only 50.
Well,
Yeah.
but your town, you had a growing population. You're busting at the seams in many spaces. I think Stephanie said it best with your prep rooms are now science classrooms. So the MSBA looks at need, and this is why when you get into the MSBA process, it's a very important milestone because it really says they've looked at, I think they get 100 and something, 80 applications a year.
I would say so. Yeah.
Right?
I think what it is.
Yeah.
And then they narrow them down, and each year you resubmit, you might move up a little bit. Someone could come right in for year one and show the highest need and skip the line, and you're still stuck. So the fact that Milford got in says the MSBA, does their due diligence,
Yeah.
in many ways, and as we talk more about the process, you'll see how the process does its due diligence to get to the right solution. Because of that due diligence, you should feel like there is a need.
It seems
And
like
that's why you're going for a new school, because there is a need.
it seems like the SBA has a lot more control and rules as to what they'll fund. Was that? I guess that was post Newton North.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they are changing every year. They are evolving as well. So to your point, it is absolutely full of little rules and limits and caps and we'll allow this, but only to a certain point. We won't allow this at all. Look elsewhere, make a separate project of it. But think of it that way. These are all the strings attached to the free money of the funds you're receiving.
They do it for a good reason too. It's
And by and large,
Yeah.
it is. They've created a set of rules though that they apply consistently, and equitably, or egalitarian, in an equal way to every district. So there is no favoritism to Newton North, or to Holyoke.
No, but I
or
mean,
anything.
realistically, you got a fixed pool of money.
Yeah.
If one
Yeah.
town
Correct.
goes $100 million over on a project,
Yeah.
That's on
They don't
them.
want to be hooked.
now it's on them.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
Newton North was on the MSBA at the
That's what I was-
SBA.
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
time.
The
yeah.
SBA
That's
at
right.
the
Yeah,
time.
so that's when they revamped it. They put
Yes.
caps in.
Good point.
And they said, we want to make sure that we have money, as much money to spread around. They're not here to pay for your building. They're here to assist you in paying for your building,
Yes.
to make it more.
What's the normal reimbursement rate about?
It's
yeah.
a great question.
If there's a such thing as a normal.
Well, and let me explain that.
Yeah.
So there's the MSBA uses each cities and towns' economic factors and even socio factors too, and they assign and it's a transparent formula. You can figure it out yourself if you want to spend the time, but no, and they assign a reimbursement rate to every district, or every town or city in the Commonwealth. So they have a limit and a max. So, a minimum and a maximum. The minimum is 30%, and maximum is 80%. So you can be minimally reimbursed 30%. So places like Newton, Wellesley, whatnot, and then you have the 80% that are, the cities and towns in higher need in the Commonwealth. And then you have folks that fall in between. And so, but that, again, that goes back to, they have a formula, they apply it uniformly, and everyone has that level, everyone has a reimbursement rate assigned to them. So there's an option for, this is getting somewhat in the weeds, but for bonus points. Whether or not if it's
How green are you? And
exactly if it's a
Yeah,
renovation,
sometimes
how much of the building is renovated, they'll give you more points for that versus
Do they-
new. So.
look more favorably on either a new school or a reno?
Oh, yeah, because technically renovations can sometimes get additional
They get additional
reimbursement
points,
but not,
We can answer that several ways. In that sense, they get additional points. In a large scheme, so the MSBA's been around in its current model since 2005, so 20 years. 20 years this program has been in place, and I would say easily, I haven't run the numbers, but conservatively, 90% of the projects, all the districts have selected new. Just the nature of the project. It's you're building something for 50 years, and what do you do with the kids when you're doing construction? And so it's just the decision more than often than not lends itself to let's just build new beside keep the kids in their existing school, and then
Well,
but we should go through that.
I was gonna say,
how we
but
get
that's
to
not
that
everywhere. Yeah.
solution, because the members might come out in that direction, but the MSBA makes you go through a very prescriptive, robust process.
Yes.
Right. So you start off, and they give you enrollments you can study. Typically, it's one enrollment. In this case, you're looking to potentially bring the 8th grade up, so that has 2 different enrollments that you can study. So when we look at those enrollments, we then have to do an ad reno, which means we have to look at an option where we're just putting an addition on and we're renovating part of the school, or we're doing a big addition and we're renovating a small part of the school. We have to look at a new construction option. So no matter what, you have to study a new construction option. That might mean you have space on your fields, you can just build all new, and then you can demo your building. Or maybe you have to demo part of your building and build all new because you have a smaller site. So that's what we're going through right now in the process. We're really focused on first understanding the program and how big the school is going to be, and then we're going to start to just test fit conceptually where the school might fit on the site, and where it does fit, is it an ad reno or is it new construction? And we're going to have probably 11 or more options at this pace of what we're going to study now, and then we'll narrow that down to the next phase, and then that phase narrows it down.
11 options?
11 options, and that's because it's, new
Great.
construction with 8 through 12, new construction with 9 through 12, new construction, or addition renovation with 9 through 12, addition renovation with 8 through 12, on this part of the site, on this part of the site, on this part of the site. So you get 2 to 3 options per site, depending on where you're located.
So it's not that Stephanie's bored and she needs to draw lots of.
No.
Unfortunately,
Stephanie loves to draw more
yes.
options.
But it is. I
you
mean,
know.
that's why we're saying, this first, report that goes into the state, the options we're outlining are not different. They're not differing architectural solutions to them. It's really just taking the Lego pieces and what Lego pieces fit here on site and what Lego pieces fit on the southern part of the site, and looking at the pros and cons of the impact of the building that's there and the education that's happening. Are we blocking off
But
an
do
access
we
to
really
the
have
site?
an option of building new?
Yes.
So
Where?
So there, and this is again, if anyone knows what Arlington High School, right? Arlington High School
$600+ million high school?
was, so Arlington was
No.
not 600 million. This was our project.
Yeah.
And this was prior to, this was during COVID.
Oh, no,
but-
I thought the recent one was.
You're thinking maybe Lexington.
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 That's what I was thinking.
Okay,
So
yeah, no.
Arlington High School is complete now.
Yes, exactly.
This is the project Stephanie recently came off on. We have some slides later if we get into them or not. But essentially, that school could not build on the fields, and it's right off Mass Ave. So we built a section, tore down a section, built a section, tore down a section, and that ended up being more economical than renovating the school in all the different phases because of the amount of different additions the school had over
Some of the
time.
levels
of
You
layer
know, the
changes.
level changes, the accessibility requirements, the structural upgrades that are required with the new code. So all of these things are assessed against one another, and they're priced against one another. So the school building committee gets to look at the cost difference between option A, option B, option C, and then we also have educational goals, right? Because the MSBA is reimbursing based on an educational plan the district's creating that says these are the kind of spaces we need in the school, these are the spaces and how we're going to teach in the school.
Well, a new words,
So-
sorry to interrupt, but a new words came in called Chapter 74
And that's
Yeah.
another
Yep.
part.
that nobody had ever thought of in Milford.
Yeah,
I mean, when I grew up, you had two choices. If you wanted to go to college, you went to Milford High. If you
Yeah.
wanted to be a tradesman, you went to BVT.
sure.
Okay.
But until recently with the lottery, to get into BVT, I mean, I always bring up my father. He came to this country, put him in organic chemistry, he wouldn't do well.
Yeah.
Give the man a tool.
Yeah,
He's an artist.
absolutely.
But you couldn't get in because you had to be the top 10% of the academic class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Milford is going to try and help that a little bit.
Correct.
Right.
And that was something I think in the statement of interest that stood out to me the most was that there was just these big statements that said, we're doing this to provide all the students within Milford more opportunity.
Yes.
And that starts with the fact that 100 students on average apply to BVT every year, and I think 40 get in, right? So that's a lot of students that are looking to potentially
And
get
that
into
100
that
is a
school.
low-ball number because
Exactly.
a
Probably.
lot of the kids,
Don't even apply.
They don't even apply.
the-
Why?
why
You're not
bother?
going to get in.
Right?
I'm in the 50% percentile bracket.
Yeah.
I don't stand a prayer getting in.
Absolutely. So as part of this project, superintendent and the principal, they've been looking at which career tech programs that they can bring into the school. And we've had talks with BVT and to ensure that, we're working with them so we're not, there's some programs that might be the same, but we're not trying to build every program the same because
But
the
we're not
state
trying to
doesn't allow
compete
it.
with them.
We don't want to compete with
By
them.
law, we can't.
Correct.
But even if we could,
There
Would-
there are exceptions, however, you're not trying to compete with them, so you're finding where the most demand is, where they can't even fill they have more demand than they can
well,
fill.
it makes sense. You say 100 kids apply, 40 get in.
Sure,
Those 60, if there's 20 that wanted to be in carpentry, if there's 20 that want to be in HVAC,
yep, or an electric,
by adding electrician programs or others, you're serving a population that wouldn't get served no matter what.
correct.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's
And that was part of when we were talking this through with people as part of the school building committee and the principal and the superintendent. That's the real push for the career tech, is that just giving that additional opportunity for students that aren't able to go to BVT. But there's also other programs that other students that didn't want to go to BVT might be attracted to. So what's going to be really great is there's this thing called a ninth grade exploratory, which is going to allow every single Milford student to have a couple weeks in each of the vocational programs as an exploratory.
Wow.
So they all get to sample what
their
it's like
electives.
to
Yeah.
go in there as
Try it
electives.
before you buy it.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
And then everyone, after that point, you make a selection as to which program you want to go into in your sophomore year, or you say, you know what, I like the art elective that I took. I'm going to stick with art. I'm going to stick with music.
But that's a
I'm
lot
gonna
like the
stick with-
college programs where you go in as an undeclared major your freshman
Absolutely.
year
And you,
And you
And
do
that-
the sampling.
you
and
do
you
the
do the
sampling.
sampling.
Yeah.
yeah, it's really a great model, and I think they're really working hard to provide that additional opportunity for students and to give more choice so that when you go to high school, it's more of an exploration of what do you want to do when you go on beyond high school.
Two questions that'll put you on the spot. Now, the taxpayer of Milford, the first thing they're going to ask is, how much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, you tell me there's 11 options. Giving a number seems trivially silly.
So, yeah, the easiest answer is let the process play out, because the MSBA, it's very prescriptive, and we're required to study it in ways that ultimately lead to the right decisions, right? So right now, what we'll be presenting tonight, again, is talking about setting up the goals matrix. And the goals matrix essentially says, what are Milford's goals? What are your educational goals for the new school? What are your community goals for the new school? What are the long-term value goals for the new school? What are the operational goals for the new school? That is going to essentially be our template that we apply to every option. And we're going to say, okay, if this is a high-ranked goal, and over here, does option 1 meet it? Kind of, that's a 1. Does option 2 meet it? Yeah, a little bit more, that's a 2. And then you use kind of this ranked matrix to help you see which options match up with all your goals that you created, not just for the educational goals, but for the
And not just
community
financial.
goals. And that's what the school building committee is there for. They're representing the community, and they're the ones helping set those goals. We don't create those goals. We advise and say, hey, these are the goals that we heard from our educational visioning, which actually just happened. The educational visioning, if people don't understand, that was, I think, around 45 people, community members, teachers, students, and they all came together to talk about what they wanted to see in the new high school. And that's helping to inform the educational plan that's being written. So it's all very supportive by the community. And as far as I can tell, they were saying they want as much community input and the ability for us to be out there talking about this project throughout. So Stephanie and I and James were always going to be available throughout this process to kind of
Second question.
help get you through.
When? What are the main steps?
Yeah,
Well, to walk through the process. So right now, for the remainder of this year, we have two different ones that goes into the MSBA. One report that goes into the MSBA in June. Another report that will go into them in October in prep of a December board meeting. So those two reports are getting us through that. Where is the building going? Who is it holding?
really the
process.
feasibility phase.
The
yeah.
answer people are looking for
Yes.
is, will my kid get into this school? So when,
2031
So if you
is the
you're-
opening date,
yeah,
August
so
of 2031.
you need to have a third grader right now, I believe. is
well,
my-
when, Bobby's
math
going
is
to
right.
watch the steps and you're going to
Yeah.
do the design and,
Yeah.
and everybody's mind is, okay, my child is going to be in the high school in
That's
32.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I think it's important is that what we're hearing, especially with the community members that just took part in the visioning, what we're hearing from the administrators of school is that this is not just a high school. This is a community center for the Milford. And right now, we're going to try to find as many ways to provide more access to this school for the community, whether it's after hours with sports and athletics, whether it's providing spaces that groups can come and meet locally, whether it's, there might be a broadcasting studio and you're able to go into there and do this show inside Milford High School a few times a
Well,
week
you're
to
kind
get-
of locked
teach the
in
kids,
because
right?
the emergency plan for the town relies on the high school.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Carla from Oliva's,
Yep.
and thank God, the minute you put her
Just
in
saw
food,
Carla today. She's wonderful.
you just relax. You know that the kids are going to be taken care of.
Yes, she's amazing.
But there's no other place in town that could serve large numbers of people in an
Well,
emergency situation.
And that's a district kitchen. They serve all the district food there. So the high school is very important to the community, and I think that's why this isn't going to be an amazing process, and why we want to keep the community engaged and involved and understand that there will be significant benefit to them beyond just thinking about what are the numbers, right? There's so much more to these schools. There's the pride they bring to communities. So it's really going to be a special thing.
You did a great presentation on the interview. Obviously, you got the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, your references helped a lot, too.
We appreciate those references.
It's like, we should check their references. Okay, hold up a mirror. How did they
I know.
do?
How do they do? That helps a lot, for sure.
But why don't we walk through that presentation?
Sure.
We can do that. That's on the screen right now. So I'm going to be looking up a lot at it. So this is, again, the presentation that, it's a little bit abbreviated, but this is a presentation that Stephanie, myself, Arthur, and a few other people from our firm and that'll be on the project attended. It was with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They have a designer selection panel. The town of Milford gets 3 votes. The other, I think it's 14, go to the MSBA. So, they watched us and I believe KBA. Was
They
the
get
other-
14 votes just because they're giving us half the money?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But they do ask the opinion of the town,
They
so,
do.
which is
No,
important.
I'm just
Yeah.
But
laughing, saying,
yeah.
why do we only get 3 votes?
Yeah.
Because 70-odd% of the money's coming from them.
Yeah, it's amazing. So this is just a slide of all the people at our firm. We're a 40-person, women-owned firm out of Cambridge. We've been around for 55 plus years and almost exclusively designing educational facilities over those 55 years, a couple affordable housing projects, but our main practice is K through 12, a little bit of college, and that's just what all of us live and breathe. So it's really just a small army of architects that are really passionate about what we do. Next slide, there we go. So this was the main team that presented. Again, I'm the principal, Stephanie and Arthur. They've been a duo working together forever.
For my
Yeah.
2 decades at HMFH.
And recently just came off the Arlington High School project, so they're kind of external PM, internal PM. They're sharing that role a little bit. So Stephanie will be with me and the community, with Milford a lot more, as well as back in the drawings. But Arthur is, he's the most amazing person that just gets into the drawings and really figures things out and helps us with identify any complex problems to solve them in the most economical way. That's always our goal. And then the two here, Mike Perillo and Roger Bourgeois, they are both former educators. Roger specializes in CTE, and he's really helping with the process of onboarding the 9 programs, because there's a long, arduous process that you have to go through. And Mike Perillo just led the 40-plus community members through the educational visioning session.
In just a small world, one of my first MSBA projects was Greater Lowell Technical High School. We were renovating that, and Roger was the superintendent at that time.
That's right.
So that's how I knew Roger.
Yeah, I think
Now
he's been
retired from
invaluable right now,
superintending,
right?
And,
He's just
and
consulting.
yeah, now he's consulting to all these other districts that are trying to implement vocational.
Yeah, he's been great in this
programs,
process. So this is just a stat showing our qualifications, over 170, I can't read anymore, but 175 plus middle high schools and CTEs. It really just to show that we have a breadth of experience within this type of school, and we're really excited to do it. Next slide. This really highlighted specifically on our vocational experience, because we know that bringing the CTE, making this a comprehensive high school was important. So we wanted to really highlight I'm just coming off of Bristol Plymouth Regional Vocational High School, which is opening up in August. We just completed Bristol Aggie, which is another wonderful vocational school, but it's an Aggie school. And then we did Dover Career Tech Center up in New Hampshire, which was a comprehensive high school up there where we really blended the two.
Is it more complicated to have a comprehensive, how much extra complexity does the VOTEC add to the high school?
It adds complexity because the spaces themselves require a lot more coordination and understanding of support infrastructure to make them flexible over the years, because these spaces change, right? Vocations change, and you need to be able to make these spaces flexible to change, but you also need to make them specific enough that they are really meeting the needs of the teachers. And as teachers come and go, they change how they teach the program. So that's that you really have to understand how to design them and get that coordination in there.
And by supporting infrastructure, that's the electrical, the mechanical, plumbing, probably something else, but that's what he's talking about there. Like, how do you make you need that space to be, both space-wise working, but you need a certain amount of airflow that needs to happen in there. It needs to have the safety protocols and procedures and all the things built in that it needs to be, while also being flexible.
Yeah,
somehow. So
it's really challenging.
It's a fun, yeah.
Well, I remember when we were designing out a biotech plant, one of the biggest
Yeah.
issues we ran into was makeup air.
There you go.
The
Yes.
office needed a whole 1%,
Yeah.
and then
The rest of the building,
And then the lab
250.
needed
100. Yes.
Yeah.
and the size of the high vac. Biotech 5 in Worcester, across from the Med Center, had the 4th floor building where AstraZeneca put in 32 walk-in hoods.
Wow.
It
Wow.
reminded me of that commercial where the speaker blows the hair back.
Yeah.
You had to pull because there was such
Yeah.
a sucking
Yes.
requirement for fresh air.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it really is. And I think that's the challenge. These are big spaces too. So fitting them within the footprint of the school and along, corridors and working with the circulation is also challenging.
This is probably-
Next slide. Oops.
I'm going to add it here, though. Just something that's interesting. vocational courses, how do you teach them? Well, so they're bigger spaces as he's mentioning. So yes, they may cost more initially. However, from an operational standpoint, that'd be good for the community to know. The state gives back a certain amount of funding each year for vocational education. And then we were talking, there's a program, Mass Hires, that studies the employment rates and and the industries and the careers and who's low on employees and as we all know, vocational careers they need more workers, and so we were even just discussing, like, if we opened up the school at night to use the things that programs like Mass Hire would pay, where we would have access to grants that would pay either underemployed or no employed adults to come in and get training, as a carpenter, as an electrician, as a plumber, so that they can go back and get those jobs or start to get those jobs.
Well, those jobs have changed too, because when you think about it, when we were kids, you looked at the high-paying jobs were all college-bound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden,
It's
if you
switching.
need a carpenter that's good, or an electrician, or a
Electrician.
plumber,
Through the roof.
Way to go.
Supply and demand.
Absolutely.
it's like, we just had a plumber come in, and it cost me $300, but I was so grateful that I could get him,
Yeah.
and that he did quality work,
Yep.
Yes.
and now,
But the sticker shock is still there.
oh yeah, especially like when I was hiring for the biotech plant, you're paying kids, young adults who just graduated $50,000-$60,000,
Yeah.
which is a nice income to start.
Yeah.
It very much is.
I feel like my father when I first started, I was making $18,000 at Waters with no commission.
Yeah.
And these kids are complaining that they're only making 60 grand.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think back to that community piece, you hit on it great, James. This opportunity to have night classes taught out of these great spaces is really a community benefit. And again, if there's grants out there that the state gives you, they pay for outfitting, they pay for the instructor. This isn't adult education. Like, it's not like sign up for a class and learn how to do this. It's actual training and actual opportunities to get
It's
people
not
in the job
basket
force.
weaving or something on
Correct.
that line. That's
It-
cute to know.
And you have these really good spaces that are designed for teaching this type of work. So that's what's great about it. To continue, I'm going to look this way because I can't read it up there, but these were the 5 areas we focused on in the presentation. How to transition to a comprehensive high school, visioning and building consensus among the community to make sure you're building the spaces that the community wants. Value is a long-term proposition. We learned this from Milford the first time through.
I don't
You guys are
envy you.
long-term thinkers.
Trying to design a building that has to stand for 50 years. I mean, a couple years ago, our boiler went down. And they're looking for ye old boiler manufacturer.
Yes. But you're lucky, hey, if the boiler manufacturer's out of business and it's been that long, that boiler did its job.
But it's like, how do you even take that into consideration when like, when I bought my high-vac system for the house, they gave me options saying, this one will last 30 years. Of course, you'd think, 30 years, that's forever.
Yeah.
Right?
I've been in the house 36
Yeah,
years.
you're like, oh, geez.
Well, I think it becomes a matter of scale, right? Like when you're building the number of thousands of square feet that we're going to have to build for the high school, everything is looked at. There's a much more modular approach to things. So it's, our systems now are taking those modular units and ganging them together to get a real great efficiency out of that. And then that also has the efficiency of 30 years down the road when a component goes, it's not that the whole system is now come down off of line. It's like you've got a module that's failed that can be repaired.
Yeah,
Right.
This building is
Repaired,
still up and
replaced.
running and heated and cooled as it needs to be,
that's a great point.
without having the whole system go down.
And
Well, I
it's
mean, you hear all the horror stories of we had a leaky roof 10 years ago. But that roof was 40 years old.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's yeah.
And I look at Milford High, it still feels like it was built as a bunker to last forever.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Well,
definitely of the 70s
it's-
concrete
yeah.
brutalist movement.
Like that, and that's a hard part because those buildings were built to last forever. Like concrete is a material that will last longer than 50 years. it's also a material that doesn't allow for change on the inside.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't just move a wall.
Right, you have
Yeah.
a lot of block walls. It's if you're sledgehammering just to get those walls down. And again, going back to the need, the MSBA looks at class sizes, and a significant portion of your current classrooms aren't up to the MSBA standard, classroom sizes. So if we're trying to renovate, we can't just take that wall down and move it over. If it's drywall, we have to take a whole concrete wall down. Well, that concrete wall might have been acting as a shear wall for the structural support. And if it's acting as that, now you have to find a way to put shear in a different place.
Well, even
So
the
it's-
rules
it-
changing, Bobby. I remember when they were doing some renovation, and they found out that whoever built the high school thought they were doing us a favor because they had extra asbestos insulation.
Exactly. You don't know what you don't know, right?
And they just said, well, we're going to
We'll give
waste
you
it. Let's
extra.
just put
Yeah,
it behind
right.
all the lockers
Yeah.
and insulate this part of the sign
Oh,
swing better.
boy.
Congratulations, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, thank you. Can
Yeah.
I whack you now?
You
But
get a lot
it was-
more, yeah.
It wasn't malintent.
No,
It meant
no.
well.
Yeah.
Well, that goes to the same, the design concepts in the 60s and 70s and a bit into the 80s was, hey, we've got all this great new technology that conditions air. So we don't want to have operable windows. We're going to have much cleaner, healthier air if we just put all these rooms inboard and seal them off, and then we're going to mechanically take care of what we need. So that ended up with a lot of buildings that have very minimal windows, rooms that don't have daylight to them, and where we've come now has
Well,
moved
instead of
forward
think
in
of the
that.
kumbaya approach. When we built Woodland and Brookside, they put 2 classrooms together, 50 kids. Nobody ever thought, how do you manage a herd of 50 kids?
Yeah.
Because when one class is doing something, it affects the other one.
Yes. I remember that. It was an open school concept.
Open
Yes.
school concept.
Yeah, and then they started building these little small skinny
Yeah.
walls and then putting noodles in between them to try to more
And putting
insulation.
file cabinets,
just doesn't
anything to
work,
kill.
right? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. I mean, so we also talked about being phase construction experts. This is the Arlington example. If we get to it,
Yeah.
Stephanie can take us through.
Yeah.
And then a design that reflects Milford. You know, we're always trying to reflect the community that we're working in. We're not architects with egos that think, you know, this is the building that needs
Yeah,
to be
we don't
put
want
on
the
this spot.
Guggenheim facade
We
put
want-
up.
Yeah, we want something that Milford can be proud of and identify with, and that's,
And that doesn't cost us an arm and a leg.
yeah.
Yeah.
Next slide, when you get a chance. Thank you. So this was just, again, taking everyone through our approach to comprehensive high schools and our experience and what we know about them. So next slide. I'll try to get through a little bit quicker. I know we're getting closer on time. Speaking of designing for efficiency, right-sizing the program is super important. What that means is we don't want to build a space 2,000 square feet bigger if it needs to be 1,000 square feet, right? We want to ensure that when we're going through and we're identifying the uses of these spaces, especially in the CTE, how many kids are going to be there, how safely can we make it, but let's build it for the right size because square footage equals cost. So the tighter square footage we can get, the more cost-effective a building can be, right? So that's rule number 1 in HFH is finding the right size for the program.
Let me
Next
add
slide.
another layer to that. So he's talking about efficiency. Well, let's talk about the MSBA layer. And one thing we haven't, so the MSBA is not just a funding mechanism. They're also telling,
Yeah.
I don't know how to best say this, but telling the
They-
designer,
Prescriptive.
prescribing to the
yeah.
designer how big some of the spaces in the building can be.
Yes.
And so, in a sense, that's good because they're telling all the districts in the Commonwealth that a classroom size is going to be between 825 and 950 for a high school. And so we're getting this uniformity, and therefore everyone's getting the same level of quality of space to a degree, or size, and certainly, and so. That's another part of the right sizing, and I guess I just wanted to bring it for the community to understand is that they're also they're greatly informing our design. So it's not just HMFH saying, I think you need 30 classrooms. No,
Yeah, they
the
tell
MSBA has this massively complex, but it works. You put it in the design enrollment, and bloop, you need 44 classrooms.
Well, they don't let you build for the future either.
They,
You know,
They
it's
build
not like
for that design
we
enrollment.
think we're
build
gonna
to
have
design
five-
enrollment. Yeah.
we're gonna have 500 extra kids, so we want
Yes, correct.
10
They-
extra classrooms. It's like, not so fast.
The MSBA, they rely on NASDAQ studies, and districts go back and forth to say, hey, this is what we see, this is what you see, and then the MSBA says, these are your enrollment numbers. And that's what you're allowed to study, and there's no variant from those.
Now, we got lucky that we got our enrollment numbers agreed to or certified or whatever prediction before we saw a drop in enrollment.
Both are correct. Yes, it was agreed to, and coincidentally, there was a drop in enrollment this year. Yes, that's right.
But
So-
that drop hasn't, this is part of the process too, is just understanding where it's going to continue to go, right? So that's part of our study and trying to make sure that we're building to what you guys need.
And a question that's come up.
But we have to build to that enrollment. And
That's right.
the MSBA tells you, this is how many classrooms you get, this is how many of this, this is how many of that. The variables will be the career tech education, depending on which career tech. Some of them have larger spaces, some of them have smaller spaces. How many non-Chapter 74 programs you have within your school. So there's a little bit of variation in there that we're working through.
But I'd rather be in the spot that they authorized us to build up to,
Correct.
and you got 200-300 extra kids in the program. Doesn't mean you have to,
Yep,
but if we had been on the short end of the stick,
correct.
I mean, Woodland, when you guys built Woodland,
Yeah.
that's going to take care of us for 1,000,000 years.
Mhm.
We'll never fill Woodland. 5 years later, capacity.
Yeah, there's definitely a if you build it, they will come
Yeah.
scenario
Part
that we
of it.
see
Yeah, that
take
you
place a
can't
lot.
quantify for, but it happens.
Yeah.
All right, so next size, here we go. One thing we learned when we did the Dover Career Tech Center, which was taking a Career Tech Center, which a vocational school they had up there, and their high school, and they said, we want to merge, we're one school. We might have two separate administrations, but we want to be one school. So we met with the community, we did the visioning. They wanted to integrate the classrooms with the career tech programs because they wanted the students to have one experience. They didn't want the career tech students to go to this side of the building and the high school students go to this side of the building. They wanted them all to share circulation. They wanted to put the career tech spaces with windows looking in so that the students as they're walking by could say, oh, I'm interested in that.
You mean like real life?
Yeah, exactly.
You mean you're preparing
Correct.
the students for real life?
Correct. And I think that's mostly the approach we're hearing Milford wants to take with this school. It's the students need one experience. They don't need, oh, you're a vocational student, you're this, because vocational, and it's the same academic. You're getting the same academic classes.
Right.
You're just choosing a different exploratory or a different elective to focus on, which is what is wonderful. what
Well,
we're
especially a
hoping to do.
place like Milford. If you wanted to pick a place that is homogeneous in demographic, you would never pick Milford.
Yeah.
One of the things we always have debates on is it a strength or a weakness that we have so many immigrants? Now, people like me whose family moved to Milford from Portugal, I think it's a very strong attribute of Milford. As a matter of fact, I grew up in Milford, followed the pattern that every Milford kid wants to escape.
Yeah.
And first step was run to Worcester, so it wasn't too far.
Yeah,
Then Washington, then Paris.
yeah, it's a good
And
place.
It was great.
Good
But
experience.
all of a sudden,
ended
when I had
You
my
come back here,
daughter,
right?
that gravitational pull
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
brought me right back to Milford.
And part of that are the schools, right? The schools where you came back here to have a family because you went through a school system and you wanted your kids to go through that experience.
Exactly.
That's why schools are really important in communities, and they really are what hold communities together in many cases. So we have about 8 minutes left, so we can keep going through this if you want. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
it's up to you.
Yeah, you want to go through a few
Why
more
don't we-
slides?
let-
Why don't we
click
skip
to
through? So these are just sense of pride and community. That's just, how to create this within the school.
Hopefully, we're getting a bigger gym.
Yes, you
Yes.
will get a bigger gym. Next slide.
We do know
Future-proofing,
that,
we
yes.
talked about building the infrastructure that can adapt over time. Next slide. Safety and security. number one thing we focus on, safety and security, no matter what we're doing. Every school, many conversations in every phase with the fire department, the police, building inspector, all the, all the administration. Everybody is always involved, and it's the foremost that's in everybody's mind when we're designing all these schools.
And that's something that Milford's invested heavily in.
Yeah.
I remember when Chief Tassino came to make a proposal that we invest $600,000 in hiring I call them school safety officers.
The SROs, school
But
resource officers. Yeah.
resource officers. Anthony is more than that. He's building a tie to students that will benefit for many, many years.
Right.
But I looked over, and what sold me was when they said, we're part of a regional SWAT initiative, and we can get SWAT response within 30 minutes.
Yep.
The average incident is over in 18 minutes.
Mhm.
And I looked over at the chairman and I said, God help us if something happens. I can't be the guy who looks at a parent and says, I'm sorry you lost your child, but we saved money.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. And I will rest assured that if we ever have to value engineer, safety measures are never something that are brought up.
Good.
Right? That you never offer them up, because nobody needs to be put in that situation either.
Well,
So,
we've got officers that live in the schools.
Right.
yeah,
So not only can they respond in minutes,
correct.
but you hear about an intruder who hid in part of the building.
Yeah.
There's no place in that building that Anthony doesn't know.
Right.
You know?
And I'd like to, as we were talking about, well, why do we need a new building? Well, was the current existing Milford High School built with the level of security that we're kind of expecting nowadays, 50 years later? We didn't have Sandy Hook in
No, I mean,
1973.
terrorism was when the neighbor's dog urinated on the school shrubs.
So
Very true.
to try to ask the existing Milford High School to be secure to the level that we want it to be and our children to go to, it's asking a lot of that building, to try to do that. So.
Next slide. I think.
Maybe get into. Yeah. So this is this is a good payoff slide, because as we promised in the interview that we are plan to come out into the community and that we want to make sure that we're going to be here for a number of years, and as I was mentioning, it's not until even next year that we get into really looking at design concepts with everyone, but we want to make sure the community is brought along with that process so that you all understand what are the steps we're taking, where is this going, when are decision points happening. So we want to make sure we're coming out to town days, community access TV. So this will be steps that we'll continue to do to make sure everyone in town is being informed of what's going on with the process.
Well, let's hope in 11 years we're in the same spot,
Yes.
saying, let's check your references on Milford High when we do Stacy.
Yes.
Let's get through Milford High.
Click to the next one.
Yeah.
And then, so, part of that process that we're going through now for 2026 is figuring out the exact what of what we're building. And we're going to get there by doing a weighted goals matrix with the building committee. And Bobby was referencing that earlier, saying that goals will have certain numerical values that we'll give to them. And the reason we're doing that is that we want all of the decisions to really have a quantifiable reason why something was chosen over something else, so that it's clear to the community. Why didn't you go with option A looks so much better? Why did you pick option Z? And we can go through the methodology and go, well, but this is because this option was had so much
Impact on the
more,
students, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But the ranking of this was higher because of these half a dozen reasons that were
Absolutely.
all valued into it. And if we look to the next one, this kind of shows that process we did with our Needham client. Here they were evaluating different sites and then different locations on those sites. So kind of the range of numbers you're seeing that are green or red is showing that, the options that are getting a green number are the ones that are rising to the top. Things that are highlighted in red are, those aren't percolating to the top. So it helps the committee decide what direction to go in. Click to the next one. And so that's actually, going to be upcoming building committee meetings now. We're working to finalize that goals matrix list with the SBC, and we're seeing it kind of falling into 4 different categories. One will be education, one will be facilities goals, operational goals. Did I say educational?
Yeah, and community.
And community. So we'll be kind of having those 4 buckets that we're putting different criteria under to, make sure that the option we go forward with is, checking off all the goals that we need for all those 4 different categories.
Do we have a hard stop?
58 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I might want it at the last minute if I can, because I have one more thing I want
Maybe
to close with, but-
I'll end with this one that's, just in kind of a closing thoughts on HMFH and, what we feel like we bring to the table is that, as Bobby was mentioning earlier, we're a firm that's been doing my 20 years at HMFH have been doing all educational design, and Arthur has been over 40 there. So we have a very iterative process where with each project we do, we're learning something, we're bringing that knowledge back into our office, and that gets kind of refines kind of the baseline that we're
But
starting
in my
with.
mind, you can sum it up in one word.
Yes.
Woodland.
Yeah, they're good.
Well, we appreciate that.
At the end of the day, you can give me all the
You did it
sales
once.
pitch you want,
Yeah.
and I think Woodland. How did we do?
Yep.
And
Yeah, we
everybody thought it was one of the most successful projects we had.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Of course, you had people like Jonathan, him and Aldo.
Yeah.
And when they needed copper wire, you threw a penny between them and they stretched it.
They're very good.
We're coming to the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to wrap a few sentiments up in 30 seconds, if I could ask anything of the community, and is just be patient, because this is a very long process. And, Stephanie alluded to it, that it's not until next year we'll finish schematic design. Next year we'll get into the design, but we'll actually finish schematic design. Then we go out to cost estimate. And then we go back to the MSBA with all the final numbers. So that's not going to be probably till June of 27.
Okay.
Right? So there'll be some preliminary numbers floated around throughout this process, because we will be updating conceptually what we think the cost is. And as we get more information, the cost gets more refined.
So about a year from now, we'll have some details.
About June, the cost estimates will be in, a project will be voted to go to the MSBA. The MSBA will then assess that project, and they will say, here's what our maximum grant is going to be against this. And that's the official time you know exactly how much the town of Milford will be required to pay for this project. And then at that point, you guys will decide, how to proceed. And then once an affirmative from the town to go forward with that number, then we negotiate a new contract, and we start design development all the way through construction administration and close out of the project.
So we got a year before we find out what Stephanie's been up to.
Yes. And we hit our 58-minute mark, but
We hit our 58-minute mark. This was very enlightening.
yes, thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Yes,
So-
fantastic job. No, you can tell
A
you've
year
done
from now,
this.
we'll get back together unless something comes up in the middle.
Sure.
Right.
Happy to
I
come
mean,
back whenever.
yeah, I mean,
You'll
there
see
might
us
be
every month.
Yeah.
time in between where we can kind of say exactly where we are in the process and show,
Last thing, if
where we are.
residents have questions, who do they refer them to?
Is it this?
We haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
We will. Let's talk to Jonathan about that. But a lot of times we set up an
email or.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
MHS project.
We'll bring it up at tonight's meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
great.
great.
new
And as
business.
always, to our 6 loyal viewers, thanks for joining us. May tomorrow night be a better night than tonight. God bless, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.